there. Maybe he'll let me go.
Alex Jones, American Communist Party. I see it in the future.
All right, thanks. Hey, buddy, take care, man.
See you, brother. Thank you.
Good discussion.
All right. All right, you guys. How'd I do? How we do? How we do?
Great, Jackson. You did a great job. You did a great job.
Thank you so much, everybody, for all the support, you guys. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. I got something very, very important, so stick around because it's actually crazy what I got cooking right now.
It's crazy.
One's in the ACP in the chat, American Communist Party in
guys,
the chat.
I added new emotes.
Chat, whatever it takes in the chat. Well, how do we think we did? I think that was a resounding success. I think that was very amicable. I think it was a beautiful resolution. You know, okay. I think that was amazing. Anyways, you guys. Thank you so much for all the super chats. I really appreciate it. I got something really important to tell you. Okay, really extremely important to tell you. Okay. Oh wow, lots of ones, lots of W's in the live chat. That's what we like to see.
This should be illegal. This is honestly just illegal.
Ones and W's and ACP. That's all I like to see.
Guys, I have new emojis.
I got something super important.
I added the ACP emoji,
and
I added the
here. This is a big announcement.
I hope he doesn't fuck it up.
Very big announcement. Yo, Ignacio, thank you for the super chat. President Jafar, thank you for the super chat. Thank you guys for all the super chats. I appreciate it.
Why the fuck is this happening?
Where do we go here? I need to tell you guys this because it's actually
fucking CIA.
Thank you for all the super chats, you guys.
This is crazy. My mic broke.
Here we go. Here we go. What I gotta tell you is go subscribe to the Infrared Show. Hazaldin, he's live right now. When this stream ends, it's automatically going to shoot you over on a high-speed rail train to the Hazaldin live stream. Go send him my love. Comment W in the chat. W Haz in the chat when I send you over, you guys.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Thank you so much for all the support. I'll see you all next time. Peace out. Have a great rest of your night. Until then, thank you so much for all the donations. Master Potato, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys all back here very soon.
Thank you, Master Potato. Thank you, Master Potato. This is you, Master. Oh, now I hear myself. This is you, Master. What's up, everybody? Welcome. If you're here, a lot of you just got done watching the great Jackson Hinkle. He did an excellent job in his conversation with Alex, by the way. Props to him. But he's setting you to boot camp, and that's what this is. This is boot camp, okay? If you just consume news, that's fine. But if you're ready to take it to another level, in terms of opening your third eye, I'm not crazy. I promise I'm not crazy. If you're ready to take it to another level, if you're ready for boot camp, you're ready to actually do something about it, okay? This is the right place to be. This is the place to be, the infrared community. We call it IGG, okay? Infrared.gg. You join our Discord. And then, if you don't know me, I'm executive chairman of the American Communist Party. ACP.us/join is the place to be if you want to do something about this. You want to make your voice heard and stop this regime change war in Venezuela. ACP.us/join is the place to be. So this is what you want to do, okay? Welcome to the Infrared broadcast. Welcome to the HQ of the Second American Revolution. This is the place to be. This is the preeminent anti-imperialist, multipolar community in the United States. This is it. You found us. Congratulations. Okay? So I have to say I was very pleasantly surprised by Jackson's performance with Alex. I was worried Alex was I thought it was gonna be Star Wars. I thought Alex was going to be bringing out the memes, and they would have to have a lightsaber duel. I was very worried for Jackson because Alex is a very proficient memer. I was worried Alex was gonna, he was gonna just bring out the crazy stuff. You're a damn communist. Like I was worried, right? But props to Alex. He was very cordial. It was a very respectful conversation. He was very open-minded. I was very happy to hear what I heard. He gave Jackson. I'm glad that Alex gave Jackson the platform that he did. And Jackson was absolutely correct about who stands to benefit and who stands to gain from the current wanton aggression against the state of Venezuela. Because there's a new psyop going on, and this is what I'd like to elaborate on a little more. Now, if you're coming from, the MAGA side of things, I guess, I don't know what I would call it. If you're coming from the milieu that decided that you were sick of the Democratic Party and you wanted to be part of this new dissident movement, which more or less was just kind of about overall rejection and skepticism of mainstream narratives, this milieu, which I guess we can call it the right wing, the conspiracy theorists, this includes libertarians, this includes people of all sorts of backgrounds, right? There's this kind of new psyop going on in there where most people's spontaneous and rightful instinct, whenever it comes to a regime change war or a foreign intervention, is going to be, fuck that. First of all, there's a few things. We don't want regime change wars. We don't want forever wars because we have enough problems at home. Let's focus on our own problems here in the States. Let's focus on benefiting and uplifting ourselves. And then there's a second thing, which, my parents came here when they were about 10 years old. And, I was born here, but my parents came from Lebanon, There was a civil war. I'm not going to get into it. And I come from that background, right? But growing up in this country, what I found remarkable, and which was a key, moment for my development, was there were so many patriotic Americans that I witnessed during the George W. Bush years who were absolutely disgusted with the neocons. And not just on the basis of naked self-interest, but on the basis of principle. This doesn't reflect our core values as a country. What I was exposed to as the real, morality of this country is that it's disgusting to see other men oppressed by our own regime. It's disgusting how we're acting like the British Empire was acting. It's disgusting that we go to another country and oppress other people and put our foot on their necks. It's disgusting that we seek to bully and oppress people around the world. It doesn't reflect who we are. It doesn't reflect our values as Americans. We're supposed to have the values and the morals of free men. We hate to see people oppressed wherever they are. And that doesn't mean we want to intervene on their behalf, but it does mean we sure as hell don't want to be the ones doing it. All this chest beating about how we're so superior and might is right and all that kind of fucking nonsense. It's disgusting. I saw so many core Americans who not only opposed the neocons, who not only opposed George W. Bush, who not only opposed Condoleezza Rice and all that, but they rightfully saw it nakedly for what it is. Every time we empower our regime to go and oppress and bully and attack other countries, we're empowering them with the same tools to oppress us. That's why Lenin said, can a nation be free if it oppresses other nations? It cannot. Every tool we've given to our regime, every consent we give to our regime, every way in which we enable our regime to go around the world and attack and oppress and enslave other peoples and humiliate other peoples, we give them those same tools and that same power to do it at home. There's no Iraq war without the Patriot Act. Alex Jones himself understood this at the time. There's no Iraq war. There's no war in Afghanistan without the Patriot Act. There's no way you can have a regime that goes to other nations, attacks, humiliates, and oppresses them, which can simultaneously be a regime that represents our interests and is not doing the same things against us. But frankly, there has been a shift that I've noticed. You see it with Matt Walsh. You see it with Nick Fuentes. You see it with so many others. And unfortunately, it seems Alex even got caught up on the hype a little bit himself. Which, it's this way to dress up this naked act of humiliation and robbery, not only toward Venezuela, but toward us as well. And I'll explain why that is shortly. Shout out our comrade Chris Morlock, because he has such a spot-on analysis about what this war is actually about, which I'd like to share, and I'd like to give him his due credit, because I have not seen a more intelligent analysis than Chris Morlock's. But in any case, they're dressing it up in this new kind of, I don't know what we're calling it anymore. This Elon Musk, dark MAGA, whatever, neoconservative kind of sentiment. If you're on X, and if you're familiar with the new right, there's this kind of vibe, if you could call it that, which is more or less like, I don't want to, this is so like terminally online, but it's important because it's shaping the outlook of the current administration and its followers. Ever since Trump was elected in 2024, you look at the forces behind that election, and a lot of it are these weird Silicon Valley types. So you've got Peter Thiel, you've got Elon Musk, you've got Curtis Yarvin, and then there's this whole milieu, the Bappists, and there's this idea, they call it, Nietzschean vitalism. And, the whole idea is that, Christianity has been holding us back, and we need to adopt a Nietzschean point of view, which is amoral, which is devoid of any respect for the sanctity of human life, any respect for the inherent dignity of man, for what our founding fathers claimed to believe, that every man is born equal, that every man is endowed with God-given rights and dignity. The values upon which our republic is supposed to stand. They're saying that's all cuckoldry, that's all weakness, that's all sissy stuff, that the real thing strong men do is seek to go out and dominate and humiliate other men in a Diddy-like manner. Frankly, I mean, if you look at these people, that's literally what they advocate for. They admire Diddy, And this is the values that the current administration are running off of. And it's this whole kind of ideology. You've got Michael Knowles, you've got Matt Walsh, you've got all these creeps, Nick Fuentes. And it's this like Gen X slop, the same people talking about Sydney Sweeney and all this nonsense. You hear this tiring bullshit. These fake edgy people who are all Zionists, these Jewish white nationalists. I think Nick Fuentes is partially Jewish, just like Curtis Yarvin and just like all these other people. It's an absurdity. It's nonsense, right? BAP. But in any case, this is what they're promoting. They're promoting some nonsense, edginess, fake edginess. And this is supposed to be the new way. And I hate Noam Chomsky, and I hate this term even. But I can't find a better term to use. A new way of manufacturing consent. The old way of manufacturing consent in America used to be that what we're going to sell the cattle of the country is that we're spreading freedom and democracy. So somehow by going to Iraq and devastating and destroying their country, we're actually freeing them and we're liberating them. That's the way they used to manufacture consent to the cattle, from a vantage point of moral superiority. Well, then here comes the Nietzschean Baptists, whatever you call these people, And their new thing is that, well, no, we're not there to liberate them. We're there to dominate them. We're there to take their oil. We're there to plunder them and humiliate. And that's cool. That's what cool people do. Because we're a big, powerful empire. It's just like Helldivers. It's just like Warhammer. And this is the cool thing. Because, nobody buys the old ideological pretext and justification of the regime. So they've created a new one with the help of these Zionist ideologists from Silicon Valley, which is based on just rejecting Christianity, rejecting the values of the Republic, so rejecting republicanism, not in the GOP sense, but in the sense of the core values upon which our country is supposed to be founded. And it's based on this new outlook of, edginess, without any pretext, and they're dressing it up with aesthetics. They're aestheticizing it. They're turning it into something cool and fun and enjoyable. And this is the new way they manufacture consent for the cattle. Oh, we're not going to Venezuela to liberate them. We're going to take their oil. We're going to steal from them. We're going to dominate them. And we can do it. And it's cool because we can. And this makes us really tough and strong. This is what being strong is like, right? And in a country that's increasingly desperate in terms of its people who have no future, people can't afford rent, they can't afford groceries, the job market is pretty brutal, everything's getting a little brutal in terms of people's living conditions. Young men and men in general do feel absolutely emasculated and humiliated by the fact that their sisters are being trafficked into prostitution, their daughters, sometimes even their mothers. Men can't afford to start families. They feel a deep sense of humiliation and emasculation because of, how controlled and socialized we all are, and the humiliation that comes with the economic degradation, the indignity of taking out a 50-year mortgage to start a home, the indignity of being owned by a bank. You don't own anything. A bank owns you. The indignity of having no control or say over your own future. The indignity of basically living as a childlike consumer for the rest of your life, playing anime or playing video games and watching anime. Men in this country feel a deep sense of humiliation and emasculation, which is understandable because this is what the capitalist class and the bourgeoisie are doing to the working men of this country. They're trying to humiliate them, turn them into slaves, and take away their dignity, which they've already done to women, by the way. So the way the regime manufactures consent for the men of this country is this fake tough guy posturing, this fake machismo, which is completely fake and synthetic. Oh, we're going to take... And then, look, you're a young man in this country. You're in debt. You're still living with your parents. You can't even afford to move out. You have no future. You can't build a family. You can't build a future. You have no economic opportunity. There's no path to mobility. This is the target audience, which is increasingly the majority of people in this country. This is how you feel tough. Oh, we're just going to go and dominate and attack others, and this is what's going to make me feel like a tough guy and a man. It's kind of like ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, most of the citizens were plebs. They were landless. They had nothing. They were increasingly indistinguishable from slaves because of how indebted they were and how much they depended on others. And so this is what's happening in America today. So just like in ancient Rome, what does the senatorial aristocracy or the elite do? They take that and they say, we're going to go attack and plunder and destroy these other people, and that's going to restore your manhood. That's going to restore your dignity. That's going to restore your sense of self-worth. So this is the same BS that they're doing. They're basically convincing the cuckolded men of this country who are cuckolded. They're being cuckolded, It's like, imagine there's this guy who beats the shit out of you every day and, takes command of your wife every night, and you're a cuckold sitting in a chair. And then in the morning, he leaves, and you stare out the window, and he goes and beats the shit out of a 5-year-old child. And you start cheering it on, and it makes you feel tough. Well, that's what our regime is doing in Venezuela. Nobody thought Venezuela stands a chance in a conventional war against the United States. So in this analogy, Venezuela is like a child in terms of like strength capacity, right? So people are trying to make themselves feel strong by watching the guy who's fucking their wife go and brutalize a child. This is exactly what's going on in this country. The way in which they're trying to manufacture consent among the dissidents in this country is, you know, the post-war hegemony was based on liberalism. It was based on a notion of freedom and democracy and yada, yada, yada. So they're trying to make it seem like the dissident and edgy thing to do is to just say, you know what? We don't believe in the right of national self-determination. That's liberal shit. We should just go in and steal and take and destroy. And they're trying to present this as a dissident point of view, that you're somehow a courageous rebel, you're somehow a courageous person for adopting this point of view and this standpoint, right? So, if you will, this is pretty much the pathos for how Americans are being convinced to be supportive of what the regime has done in Venezuela, which is kidnap the sitting president of Venezuela. Of course, they'll buttress this with the lie, which I don't think anyone believes, that Maduro was an unpopular dictator, by showing footage of, you know, gusanos in Chile or in Argentina or Miami dancing. Sometimes the footage is from 6 months ago anyway, but in any case, they can't really find us any footage from Venezuela itself of anyone celebrating this. Quite on the contrary, you go to Venezuela, you'll see the whole country is united against this. They're marching in the streets calling for the return of Maduro and protesting against the U.S. imperialists. So this is the truth, but I don't think that's the main selling point. I think the main selling point at this point is this fake way to treat a cattle cuckolded population, give them a sense of fake masculinity and fake bravado by glorifying a wanton act of aggression against another people. To be clear, a real man does not like seeing other men put down. A real man likes seeing arrogant men humbled. A real man likes seeing people humbled who are aggressors. A real man doesn't like seeing other men put down. Why would you want to do that unless you yourself feel humiliated? You yourself feel like a bitch, and this is your way of coping with your own inadequacies. This is not our way, and these are not the core values of this country, at least as far as I know, because I was here during the George W. Bush years as a kid, and even as a kid, I could see how fake and manufactured it was, and how there were so many patriotic Americans, and I'm talking about people of the Ron Paul variety specifically, who play, and I watched them say this. I would watch the videos on the internet of them saying this. Ron Paul giving speeches saying, this is not our way. This doesn't reflect our values. They had a visceral disgust. Scott, what's up? I appreciate you. They had a visceral disgust, you know, at the way our regime, it's disgusting. You know, it absolutely contradicts our way and our core values. The values upon which our republic is supposed to stand, at least. This amoral Nietzschean nonsense. I mean, this is just some strange Zionist, Jewish Satanism or something. It's an imported ideology in this country. And if you want to say, well, what about the whole might is right thing? Might is Right was a book written by a socialist. Jack London, who was a naturalist, who believed in, you know, the survival of the fittest stuff, those were socialists. What they were saying is that the working class needs to rise up and assert its strength. They weren't saying that we should acquiesce to the regime and glorify its false sense of strength. They were talking about the innate strength and potential within every man and the need for us to assert this on behalf of our dignity, on behalf of our existence. That means workers. That means common people standing up for themselves against the regime, against the regime full of people with pink hands, born with a silver spoon, who were handed everything they've ever been given in life and don't know a fucking thing about hardship and struggle. That's the American way. So, you know, this ideology was imported from Europe. This is some kind of Satanism that comes from Europe. Comes from Europe, it comes from Israel, doesn't come from the USA. And there's nothing wrong with being inspired by foreign ideas. But this is, some people try to say that communism is against the American way. That's just some Cold War bullshit. Okay, before the Cold War, nobody would say that. Before the Cold War, the Bolsheviks looked at America as the most fraternal, the American Republic and its values. They said this is the closest thing to what we're doing right now in the world. This type of republic, this type of democratic republic. That's some Cold War nonsense invented, you know, by the Anglo-Saxon regime, the Anglo-Atlantic, and then later the Zionist regime. We can get into the specifics about how the Soviet Union was blocking immigration to Israel and how this is what led the Zionist, a lot of the Zionist Jewish elites in America to start campaigns against the Soviet Union. And they created the 80s, and they helped create the 80s anti-communism. Before then, it was the Anglo-Atlantic elite, Rockefellers, the Morgans, you name it. These are all parts of the same ruling class, though, you know? But in any case, they say communism is against the American way. I beg to differ. What's against the American way is this disgusting BAP Nietzschean bullshit nonsense. You know, Diddyism, this Diddyist perversion. It's completely at odds with the core principles and values upon which our republic is supposed to stand. I mean, how did we wake up one day and decide we're going to volunteer to be slaves? Did we wake up one day and decide that we're going to acquiesce and agree to hand over our God-given dignity and freedom? Because when you're cheering on what they're doing in Venezuela, even as a tongue-in-cheek joke, and I get it, it's an absurd and ridiculous thing, but you need to be aware of what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to prepare us for consent and acquiescence to serfdom and slavery. The red line that we have formally that separates us from slaves is the U.S. Constitution. The government is acting without any constitutional sanction whatsoever. And people think this is the tough guy thing to do. Oh, screw the Constitution. This is the soy thing. But that's the only thing formally separating us from slavery right now. So people are cucking themselves by cheering on what's going on in Venezuela. They're acquiescing voluntarily to handing over their own rights and liberties, just like the American people did under George W. Bush, who brought us the Patriot Act. You know, there's no Iraq war without the Patriot Act, because Lenin was right. A nation cannot be free if it oppresses other nations. If you give your regime consent to go and oppress other nations, those same mechanisms and tools will be used to oppress us here at home. And they are already. If you find it cool that they took Maduro in the middle of the night, hey, that's going to be you next. If you dare assert any kind of independence, if you dare assert any kind of dissent toward the regime, that could be you next. They'll snatch you in the middle of the night. There's nothing tough about that. You used the combined power of the entire global system in the U.S. military to target one individual. They could do that to you. And our only recourse against it is standing up and uniting as a people. If the American people stood up and united, which they can, and I'll explain how that is, they would not have a unified armed forces with which to terrorize the people of the world or American people at home. My bad. So, these are the blatant and simple facts. The same things they use to attack people abroad are the same things they're going to be using to attack us. So I've spent the first 30 minutes talking about the new form of manufacturing consent. We're talking about all the ex-big conserva slop accounts, the Roman LARPers, all these kind of people, Nick Fuentes. These are all bought and paid for Zionist shills. The entire right-wing influencer sphere. Well, there's a few exceptions, I'll say. Candace Owens seems to have a head screwed on her shoulders on this topic. Tucker Carlson does. Others do. And I think the majority of people caught in this milieu, in general, have correct instincts, but they're being led astray by the prostitute influencers. The Nick Fuenteses, the Matt Walshes, all these other edgelord, pieces of shit, captive dreamer, whoever you want to call them, They're being led astray by these people who are like, you know what? This is freaking cool. And if you disagree, you're a libtard. How have we gotten to a point where having a moral conscience is something to mock? Well, I'll tell you why we mock it. Because things have gotten so fucking brutal in this country. The law of the jungle is how people rationalize their own destitution. The way banks dominate them. The way money dominates them. So there's a brutality of our existence, which is absolutely real and which people feel in ways they haven't in decades. But the way we should respond to that is by waging a brutal class struggle against our own elites. Because contrary to what they're trying to tell you, we have plenty of resources and wealth here at home. It's just that it's being monopolized by a handful of bloodsuckers and parasites, not content with the rape of the American people, are frothing at the mouth and salivating at the mouth to go and attack other nations. And if you support this, you're doubling down on your consent for the rape and plunder of the American people itself. Now let's analyze what's actually going on here, because Chris Morlock has a spot-on analysis. Do you want to know the sickest part of all? This war is not even about oil. I bet you didn't know that. In order for the U.S. to take Venezuela's oil, they would have to commit maybe hundreds of billions of dollars in building new infrastructure, strategic industrial planning, all this kind of stuff that our regime has never been able to pull off or show any interest in, for maybe half a century or more. Think about that. It's not even about oil. So when they say when Tim Pool says we're going to take the oil and we're going to get rich, you could tell these people are midwits. You could tell these people are cattle. You could tell Nick Fuentes is an idiot and a midwit who doesn't understand anything about how the global economy works. Chris Morlock has a brilliant analysis of what's actually going on. They're targeting Venezuela to asset strip the country and securitize it financially to keep up our financial scam bubble economy. It's not actually even about taking the oil. It's about keeping our Ponzi scheme financial capitalist system going through asset stripping. So this is all immersed in financial abstractions that have nothing to do with the production of oil. On the contrary, we're trying to suppress Venezuela's potential to tap into their oil reserves and produce oil. Why do we want to do that? Because that challenges our global monopoly. It challenges our monopoly system. I want to pull up Morlock's analysis, and props to him because it's utter brilliance. Because this is absolutely the truth. So let's look at this. I want to show this to you guys because props to him, by the way, because this is absolutely brilliant, you know? So, note of extreme caution to comrades. Do not fall for the "it's about oil" lie. So he says, I've lived through multiple imperial wars where the so-called left reflexively responded with the same lazy line. They're just there for the oil. I remember this explicitly during the first Gulf War and implicitly throughout Iraq, Libya, and Syria. This is bunk. The U.S. never extracted shit from Iraq, which is true. It's actually so interesting. We all think that we went into Iraq for oil. But when you think about it, we actually didn't extract oil from Iraq. We definitely weren't motivated by spreading democracy and freedom. So why did we actually go into Iraq? And why are we going into Venezuela? Well, hear out Chris's argument because it's extremely brilliant. It's extremely intelligent. So the argument collapses when you understand the nature of finance capital. The goal is not extraction, but prevention and suppression of productive forces for rent, debt, and control. So Trump claimed, like the original, explicitly what the original neocons already implied, that there's a payoff in seizing another country's resources. You know, for Americans who are paying so much gas, and it's morally abominable, it's disgusting, but how Americans are you know, they live in the jungle, okay? There's no such thing as morality. So most Americans are cynical and are morally abominable in their outlook in our brutal system where they just say, you know what, I'd like to pay cheaper gas at the pump. I don't care how many people get killed. I don't care about how many people get oppressed or brutalized. I just care about what's in front of me. Now, they're turning the American public into pigs. This is a swine-like psychology that the American public has adopted. But it's the brutal truth. Most Americans are not benevolent and compassionate and don't care about the well-being of anyone. They don't even care about the well-being of their neighbors, right? Look at how many homeless people we have in this country. But we need to be careful because even this argument collapses. Even this notion that this is about lowering the price of gas is false. And Chris explains why brilliantly. So people think that, you know, taking the oil means cheaper gas, lower costs, and relief from austerity. Don't care about morality, they care about price. Then the left responds by framing everything as kleptocracy while still accepting the premise. And it's a losing argument. And I actually agree it's a losing argument. It should be a winning argument if you are a real man who has dignity, who has morals, who has a conscience, who upholds the foundations, the values upon which our republic is supposed to stand, then it should be by instinct, you should be disgusted at the criminality, at the banditry. You should be disgusted. But the truth is, most people don't think that way. Most people think in terms of self-interest. Because that's the that's the real premise of our existence economically, right? So that's why it's a losing argument when you appeal to morality. Even though it's legitimate, it's absolutely legitimate, for most people it's going to be a losing argument. So Chris is actually correct. So you have to dismantle the premise. The thing is, the lower prices never come. The oil never gets extracted. what actually happened in Iraq wasn't oil extraction, but financial looting. The state shoveled pork barrel money into the MIC, especially firms like Halliburton, through no-bid logistics. So let me translate that to you. The financial looting that's happening is to justify the creation of more credit at our expense. Meaning this is going to immiserate and throw more debt on the American people. You're taking on a debt you didn't sign up for. That's what the war in Venezuela is going to be about. They need assets to securitize the creation of more credit to maybe try and control the runaway inflation that's going on. So they want to asset strip the Venezuelan economy to do that so they can take out more debt, which comes at our expense. 50% of our income taxes, it's probably 60 or maybe even 70 now. This was in 2024. We're going to servicing interest on the national debt. So you pay for it. And reconstruction contracts. Iraqi oil production, which was 3.5 million a day in the late 80s, collapsed to a few 100,000 barrels per day during the early 2000s. Even after the exit in 2011, took another decade for Iraq to claw its way back to production, and only through Chinese-led industrial investment, not American capital. Isn't that interesting? So the correct response is not moral outrage, it's to deny the premise entirely. I totally agree. They don't even produce any material gain for anyone tangibly, only financialization, debt, suppressed production, and long-term economic ruin. Then the economy falls apart and they print more dollars to synthesize profit from thin air. Sure, capital accumulation occurs, completely bereft of logic and reality. So let's go to Venezuela. And this is such a good argument here. Do you really think Trump, Palantir are going to become industrial planners? If they're going to become industrial planners in Venezuela, why can't they do that in America? If they can't even succeed in becoming industrial planners in America, how are they going to do it in Venezuela, where militias and people from Colombia, like the ELN, they're going to come and blow up oil infrastructure? Like, there's going to be like armed hostilities. There's going to be industrial sabotage. Much harder than doing it just in America. You think they're going to negotiate without an invasion, without regime change, and without reconstruction, a $200 billion contract, 15-year industrial oil expansion in a country whose infrastructure has been deliberately strangled for a decade? That's the real pipe dream, okay? So look at all of these swine, and the fact they're doing this should disgust you as an American, okay? We're going to go steal and take their oil. Tim Pool, Michael Knowles, I don't know, Matt Walsh. We need to support, that's America first. We're putting our interests and violating others' interests. This is swine. This is swine-like manufacturing consent for swine and for pigs, who have the morals of beasts and wild animals, as Stalin called Hitler and the Germans during the war. But even if you accepted that premise and you wanted to be an amoral Nietzschean, the real utopian libtard pipe dream here is that you're somehow going to get a $200 billion contract without invasion, without regime change, without boots on the ground, for a 15-year industrial oil expansion when we can't even do that in our own country. Meaning, you think you're going to take Venezuela's oil or anyone's oil? You don't even have the fucking ability to plan something like that. And if you did, you would have shown your ability to do that in America. Now, I have no doubt China could do something like that, even though China has a moral foreign policy, believe it or not. People are too cynical to accept that. But yeah, China does, in principle, uphold the right to self-determination of nations. They don't recognize Taiwan as a separate nation. That's why they're violating Taiwan's sovereignty, because Taiwan doesn't have sovereignty because it is China. But China has the ability to do something like this. America does not. If it did, we would have seen it done domestically before they would do it in Venezuela. If we had the capacity to do something like this domestically, we wouldn't even have this type of ideology of Nietzschean, amoral. We would need Christian values in some capacity. I am not personally a Christian, but I understand the Christian values that are the foundation of the American Republic, which are rooted in a premise of having a moral conscience, Christ's basic teachings, that we are not fucking wild animals, okay? That we have a sense of duty and obligation to respect the God-given rights and dignity of every man. That makes total sense to me. Makes absolutely total sense to me. Every man is born equal with God-given dignity and rights. You know, that comes from, if you think about it, there's a Christian dimension to that, because Christ's message was basically that everyone is born with God's grace. You know, through God's grace, humanity is uplifted to salvation, okay? Through God's grace, which is given to us for free. So this notion of God's grace, that's what influences our republic. Okay, the Nietzschean Baptist people, they don't believe in God's grace. They don't believe every man is born with a grace. They believe that we are born pigs and swine, and we need to act like swine. And I'm just telling you what they think and what they openly say, right? This is how Nick Fuentes thinks. Nick Fuentes pretends to be a Christian, but he's really a pagan. He's really a Satanist. He's some kind of Zionist Jewish. And I say Zionist Jewish because it's a perversion. Just like I would say ISIS is a type of, ISIS Islam, and ISIS jihadi. That doesn't mean I think that reflects the core values of Islam. But that's what you call it. So the Zionist Jewish cult, which has a lineage going back to the Sabbateans and all sorts of nonsense, is very much based in an amoralism of, committing sin and deliberately, doing bad things deliberately, In any case, it has nothing in common with our republic. It has nothing in common with core American values. So Nick Fuentes, he has the ideology of swine. He has the mentality of a swine. But in any case, it's all a bullshit way of window dressing and putting a cosmetic flavoring and ornamentation upon financial asset stripping for the purposes of keeping up a Ponzi scheme economy that is not even based in any real production, let alone, extracting this monumental strategic industrial planning for booting up Venezuela's oil industry, which we can't even do this at home. How are we going to do it in Venezuela? But if we had the capacity to do this at home, you want to know what that would presume? It would presume we have a Chinese-like economic model which puts the common interest in command and not profits. By the logic of the profit motive, building up America's productive forces is illogical because you're taking out a loss. Why take out a massive investment to build up things that benefit the American people when you can just jack up the prices of the monopolies you already control and own, which is what they're doing? Why would they want to build more rather than just jack up the cost of living? Instead of reducing the cost of energy and the cost of economic activity in this country, Let's just jack up the prices. It's not like they can go anywhere else. Let's squeeze out literally everything we can. And we know the American people won't afford it, so they'll have to take out debt to do it. And that's perfect, because this collateralizes all the wealth Americans own, which we'll be able to gobble up and own it and have total and absolute control. Now, if you have a strategic a form of economic planning and industrial development, like China does, and Russia to a lesser extent, but a significant extent, then in that case, the profit motive can't be in command. You're doing something for the common good of your country. If we had that kind of mentality, even from an ideological perspective, we would respect the principle of the right to self-determination of nations. Why? Because that necessitates our own popular sovereignty. We need to win our country back in order to make the country work for us. We, the people, don't have a voice in this country. Okay, we, the people, do not have a voice in this country. So to make the country work for us, we need to have and reestablish a form of popular sovereignty. If we do that, that experience is going to give us a newfound respect for the right of self-determination of other nations. Because what applies here does, contrary to what these pigs say, it does apply to how we treat others. We wouldn't even have the values to say we can go into Venezuela and just steal their shit. Because we would have the values of a free nation. We would have the values of a nation of, by, and for the people. Not a nation of swine and pigs brutalized by banksters and bloodsuckers. So we wouldn't even have that mentality from the outset. We would be like China. Maybe we would want to go and build infrastructure in Venezuela. Well, we would do it on a negotiated basis. We would do it on a basis that respects Venezuela's sovereignty and dignity. We don't have any reason to want to humiliate others and throw them into indignity. Otherwise, that would be a reflection of us. If we're a nation of free people and dignified people, then we are a nation that does not want to see other people brutalized and oppressed. We would prefer to recognize other people as dignified and free peoples as well. If you have values, you want those values to be reflected in how you treat and interact with others. Arbitrarily saying, oh, we're Americans, so we're different, doesn't fucking mean anything. What defines an American is the principles and values upon which our country stands and upon which we act on behalf of our country. In any case, let's continue. So they're going to Venezuela not for extraction, but asset stripping. The firms positioned to re-enter Venezuela are overwhelmingly financial. Asset managers like BlackRock are wanting to absorb the distressed sovereign and PD VSA-linked debt, restructure it, and turn future production into collateral streams rather than national revenue. To translate that to you if you don't know what that means, collateral is something you have to back up the expansion of credit. So in order to back up the expansion of credit to issue out new loans, you need some kind of collateral. That's what they're going to try to do to the future streams of limited production they envision for Venezuela. U.S. and European oil majors are waiting not to build capacity for production sharing, to build capacity, but for production sharing agreements, arbitration rulings, and debt for equity swaps that cap output and guarantee rents. Sanctions relief is used as leverage not to expand capacity, but to discipline the state and force Venezuela into IMF-style restructuring, privatization, and legal subordination to Western capital markets. That's what we did to Iraq. That's what we did to Iraq. We didn't increase oil production and take the oil. We put Iraq under IMF debt to collateralize. I mean, this doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit any human beings. It benefits capital. It benefits a fucking abstraction. And that abstraction, I'm not going to get too, into the sauce here, but our elites worship. They worship these abstractions, literally, as demons. I sound crazy. That's fine. You could look into this yourself, but they worship demons. And who are they worshiping? They're not worshiping anything human. They're not worshiping anything tangible. They're worshiping abstractions and demons. And that's what capital has become. It's called Moloch. They have all sorts of mystical, strange, bizarre rituals they're doing behind the scenes. And, this is the world we live in. It's not a world for human beings. It's a world for these demons that they worship. Mammon. They want the Chinese to pay for this oil in dollars, a minor nuisance for Xi, and a silly ploy for Western rentier oligarchs. So in the derivatives-driven system, money is not made by flooding markets with oil. It's made by restricting supply, inflating prices, securitizing future flows, and extracting rents through debt instruments. So in other words, through consolidating monopolization to control the stream of rent. Because when you do that, you could just keep jacking up the price of rent, just like Comcast and just like the monopolists that rule America. You notice if you have Comcast, if you're under these rentier companies, they never improve a fucking thing. They keep jacking up the prices without improving anything, right? Every sphere in our economy works like that. They jack up the prices and nothing gets improved. And that's what we're dealing with here. That's why they want to go into Venezuela, to consolidate and expand that specific system. So this is the real play. It's not oil for Americans. It's not development for Venezuela. It's financial control, industry, suppressed production, higher global prices. And here's how it functions step by step. So he's going to explain this. He's not just saying, he's going to explain it. Hey guys, the white nationalists, they love the white monsters. And Red Bull is so much better. And this is not and by the way, I'm not being paid by Red Bull. So if you like what you're seeing, if you like the content, hit the description. If you want a text-to-speech donation, it'll show up on the stream. There's also the super chats, which I'll read. But I'm not being sponsored by anyone. So if you support the stream, if you support if you like what you're hearing, then consider it. Anyway. So it's not development for Venezuela. It's financial control, chopped up industry, suppressed production, and higher global prices. Here's how the mechanism functions step by step as a single integrated system. So PDFSA entered the 2010s with roughly 30 to 35 billion in external debt. Much of it accumulated during the oil price collapse after 2014. So if you guys have been around for this, you know that when they were eating cats and dogs in Venezuela, they had their whole economy collapsed because of the collapse in the price of oil, if you remember, right? So the debt wasn't issued under New York international commercial law. Oh, it was issued under New York international commercial law, not Venezuelan law, making it immediately vulnerable to foreign litigation once payments slowed. So then U.S. sanctions, primarily enforced through the Treasury, didn't simply punish Venezuela, they froze their access to dollar clearing, blocked refinancing, prohibited U.S. persons from rolling over debt, and severed access to spare parts, dilutants, insurance, shipping, and reinsurance. They guaranteed production collapse. Output fell from 2.3 million in 2015 to under 700,000 by 2020. The collapse was then cited as evidence of mismanagement. In reality, we systemically and deliberately made sure to collapse their capacity for production, and then later we lied and we said that they mismanaged the economy. If you remember those narratives. By the way, even leftists were spreading these narratives. You know, Jacobin Magazine, all these people, they were spreading the same fucking mismanagement myth. So once payment defaults occurred under sanctions, creditors activated arbitration and litigation channels. So bilateral investment treaties signed in the 90s gave foreign firms standing in ICSID, the World Bank-linked arbitration system, designed to explicitly protect capital against sovereign states. So they now face tens of billions in these claims. And those awards are enforceable not inside Venezuela, but against Venezuelan assets abroad. So that's why Citgo, the U.S. subsidiary of the PDVSA, became the primary target. Courts in Delaware treat arbitration as senior claims. The result isn't compensation through production, but forced asset liquidation and debt waterfalls. Isn't that an interesting logic? It's not that, we want the debt to be paid for. We don't want the debt to be paid for. We want to liquidate the assets in the first place to expand and protect the monopoly. At no point does this process require rebuilding Venezuela oil. In fact, rebuilding capacity undermines the structure by increasing supply and reducing price leverage. If there's more supply, then a monopoly can't jack up prices willy-nilly. Economics 101, if there's competition, then there's pressure, and you lack price leverage. So the rational financial outcome is permanently constrained production, collateralized future barrels, and extremely controlled cash flows. Sanctions create default. Default activates arbitration. Arbitration enables asset seizure. When Nick Fuentes says, let's take the oil, he doesn't know what he's saying, or he does know because he's a Zionist sellout and a shill. But that doesn't mean you're taking someone's wealth and you're enriching yourself. It means you're keeping a broken system flowing, which corresponds to the pauperization of the American people themselves. Asset seizure disciplines the state. Financial firms then step in to stabilize through debt restructuring, equity swaps, and price-managed reentry. The oil mainly stays in the ground. The rents flow outward. So this is what's going on. Monroe Doctrine and gunboat diplomacy. This is LARP. This is Helldivers LARP. This is Warhammer 40K LARP. There's not some big, they have these cuck fetishes, Nick Fuentes and Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is a cuckold, by the way. He's a preeminent cuckold. Matt Walsh, he fantasizes all day of some big, burly, tough guy going and fucking his wife and he can watch. But anyway, this is a bunch of cuckold fantasies. They have this fantasy of a big, burly man going and bullying Venezuela and stealing the oil. In reality, there's some limp-wristed, disgusting, glasses-wearing fuck who looks like Klaus Schwab or Yuval Noah Harari or some kind of other lizard-like, disgusting, abominable being. Some kind of, Nathan Rothschild, some kind of fucking, what do you call them? What do you call these pansy, some kind of fucking weirdo, okay? Some creepy child predator who visited Epstein's Island. He's sitting with a suit and tie somewhere with his legs crossed. And he's just sitting and salivating at the prospect of keeping up this smoke and mirrors, empire of lies, bullshit, fake economy through these CGI smoke and mirrors tricks, all these financial tools and technologies whose purpose is what? To destroy productive capacity and jack up rents. And why do they want to jack up the rents? Because they want to fucking control you and they want to control your future. Because you're nothing but cattle and livestock to them. They're sitting in their high-rise building. They're looking down at the American people. And what do they see? They see cattle. Your cattle and your livestock, they want to control you. They have a vision for controlling you. In order to affect that vision and turn you into a slave, into a serf, and suppress your potential, the God-given grace and potential you were born with, you know, they have to do these things. They have to go to other nations and devastate and loot and steal, not because they want the wealth and they're going to, you know, expand the creation of wealth or even redistribute wealth to themselves in a concrete material sense. They need their Ponzi scheme economy to continue running. They need to control prices. And the whole thing is political control. I want to teach, if there's anything you have to learn, late stage capitalism, the purpose of it is control. You go from profit motive and economics to political control. Why? Once you indebt everyone, once you asset strip everything, once you force everyone to go bankrupt and you collateralize all the wealth that they own, the banks own everything. They own everything. They literally own everything. And with that ownership comes the ability to affect whatever kind of vision for the future they want. Now, for most, you have visionaries like Klaus Schwab with the Great Reset and living in a pod and eating bugs. But for the most part, it's an insanity. They want to hoard the numbers, okay? They want to keep it going because it operates by a dysfunctional logic, which is just the profit motive. Even if you're not a conspiracy theorist and you don't believe they want to restructure everything with a Great Reset, I don't even think they have a capacity to effect a Great Reset. I think that the logic of our economic system is just dysfunctional because this is the consequence of the profits in command, the profit motive in command. Insanity. Eventually, there's a metabolic rift between the accumulation of capital and profits and the very material productive means to realize it. And investing in the productive forces becomes a countervailing tendency toward the accumulation of capital. Because it reduces price leverage. That's why our infrastructure is from the 1970s. That's why everything's so outdated in our country. That's why nothing new really is being built of any. Well, why would they? Why would they want to reduce the price leverage? I mean, even if these are not greedy people, this is how the system works. If your Netflix subscription gets lowered to $10 a month, let's say Netflix invents a new technology for streaming and bandwidth or something, and they could lower it to $10 a month, just like how it was, right, 10 years ago. That would cause a financial crisis because the revenue streams that are going to paying back the interest that Netflix takes on as debt from these financial firms, that gets reduced. The rate of paying back the interest, paying back, the derivative on the Netflix shares, the ownership of the shares, the decrease of the servicing of the debt gets, how do you call it? It gets, I don't want to say noticed. Yeah, well, it gets noticed by the market. What's the word I'm looking for? The market notices it, okay? The market reacts to it. And what it does is it leads to a devaluation of Netflix. So Netflix shares would plummet even if they had a technology to reduce Netflix prices to $5 a month. The shares in Netflix would plummet because they're just raking in less. So I'm using Netflix as an example because most of you probably have Netflix subscriptions and you use Netflix, but the entire economy works that way. To make things cheaper and more energy efficient would collapse the economy. How twisted is that as far as the logic of economics? So that's why the oil stays in the ground and the rents keep flowing. Because increased oil production lowers the price of oil. What happens when the price of oil gets lowered? Same thing that happens when the price of your Netflix subscription gets lowered, right? So this is why they just want the oil line is not merely wrong, but backwards. Oil is most valuable when it's not produced, when it exists as a future claim backing debt, derivatives, and geopolitical leverage. Anyone telling you otherwise is historically literate or selling a lie. Trump is simply accelerating the debt peonage machine, not extracting resources like the Roman, whatever fantasy. The reality is that the Western left spent decades making it's wrong to extract resources argument, and it never happened. It's losing. It's time to contradict the financial oligarchy is fundamentally unproductive in all senses. You know what? I don't know why I didn't like it. When I first saw Chris write this, it had 300 likes, and I'm like, that's such a shame. This deserves to be viral. And organically, he got 2.5K likes. I'm so glad people saw this. This is the most brilliant take on the economics of the Venezuela intervention that has been produced yet. And I'm so glad I was able to share it with you, It's not the only thing I wanted to talk with you about and share with you, but I wanted to just make clear and have us be clear about what is actually going on. Because both liberal leftists and the right wing, so liberal leftists are doing it from the moral perspective, and the right is doing it from the perspective of, let's go take the oil, let's go take their stuff. And both positions represent cuckoldry to BlackRock, cuckoldry to the financial capitalist class, cuckoldry to Wall Street, cuckoldry to the capitalist class, and it's a distraction. This is class warfare against not just the people of Venezuela as a national aggression, it's class warfare against the American people. Going into Venezuela is not going to make the American people rich. It's going to immiserate them in more debt. It's going to give them more control over the price at the pump. And it's going to jack up prices for Americans. And you're going to witness that and see that. Trump pretends like he's this developmentalist who wants to benefit the American people. He's not. He's a servant of the Epstein class. It's not just a catchword. It's not just a slogan. The Epstein class, who do you think Epstein was? Who do you think he was? Who do you think all his friends were? Jesus Christ, not this again. I got to look into this. Becoming a regular occurrence. Who do you think that is? It's the same financial managers and money, the money managers. That's what I'm talking about. It's the financial firms. When we print money, what's really happening is that central banks are printing money in our name, and the only thing we're doing is signing up for debt. We're saying we'll pay you back. We'll pay you central banks back. We're not printing it. It's not ours. We're signing up to pay it back against our will, right? And when they print the money, they pump it into the money managers and the financial firms. These are the people that first get it when they want to pump it into the economy. The asset managers. So this is what's going on. So the people who support what's going on in Venezuela are cuckolds. They're frankly just cuckolds. And by the way, I broke down two things. I broke down the ideology aspect. It's a satanic, Zionist, Nietzschean amoralism or, immoralism, which it's just perversion. It's just Diddyism. It's just Diddyism. That's what we should call it. We should call it Diddyism. Okay, so this is the Diddyist ideology they're coming from. And then some people might say, well, why do you support Russian intervention in Ukraine? Because Russia's intervention in Ukraine was 1,000% morally justifiable. Billy, what's up? I appreciate you. 100% morally justifiable. Russia was not the aggressor in Ukraine. Russia didn't just wake up one day and decide, you know, it's a Nietzschean whatever vitalist and it's just going to bully and dominate and humiliate Ukrainians. That's not what Russia was doing in Ukraine. Russia was in Ukraine, not cynically, but genuinely to protect the Russian speakers in the Donbass, which is why they waited 10 years to do it. And Russia was in Ukraine because NATO is the one continually expanding to encircle and attack Russia. So there's an offensive team and there's a defensive team. Okay, Russia, Venezuela, China, these are people that are trying to defend themselves so they can develop and benefit their own people. We're on the offensive and we're attacking them because we refuse to benefit our own people, because that comes at the expense of the oligarchs. So we go and prey on other nations to keep the Ponzi scheme going. So there's an aggressor and there's a defender. Russia acts in self-defense. We're not acting in self-defense in Venezuela. Venezuela's only crime is they want their sovereignty and they want to defend themselves from the IMF and from the predatory, pedophilic Epstein elite. Sheep, what's up with the 5, bro? Appreciate you. Guys, I want to remind you, in the description, there's a donation link. If you have a text-to-speech, if there's something you want to say to the entire stream, you could say it there. And then, you know, I'm not being sponsored by anyone, so if you want to support the stream, you know, much appreciated. So, yeah. Yeah, no, and this is the new, you know, I hate the word, but this is a new form of manufacturing consent, but this time it's coming from the right. Usually the manufacturing consent is couched in the liberal language of freedom and democracy. Now it's being couched in the language of, you know, some kind of like LARP, Roman social Darwinist LARP. It's just as inauthentic. It's just as fake. It's just as much some CGI bullshit nonsense. But, you know, if you're cattle, you might eat it up and think that, oh, this is like Warhammer and Helldivers. And it's like, this is not how the world works. I know you watch Game of Thrones. I know you might play strategy games, but it's just not how the world has ever worked. World history is full of conquest. It's full of conflict. It's full of all sorts of things. That doesn't have a whole lot to do with strategy games. Okay, the reason and logic behind conquests, it's always rooted in something far more complicated than a jungle, you know, Darwinist jungle or whatever, okay? Like, I'll give you an example of this. The biggest conqueror in world history, in my opinion, I'm a big fan of them, and I defend them, is Timur, okay, Tamerlane, who is a Turco-Mongol steppe warlord who conquered and plundered many cities. You know, even he didn't act according to the logic of the Nietzsche and Nick Fuentes people. And I'll explain. I just want to do this to illustrate an example of like how conquest actually happens in history and why. So Timur has modest origins, okay? He's in the steppe. And he's in a lawless steppe where there's no honor. So there's a bunch of warlords running around. The weak are being exploited and oppressed. There's lawlessness. There's dishonor. There's corruption on a mass scale. So Timur rises because he's reasserting honor and order to protect the weak and the innocent. He's reaffirming honorable relationships between nomadic steppe peoples, meaning we have honor. I'm not just going to go and steal your shit. We have to have an agreement and an understanding based on a contract, based on a law. So Timur's reasserting law and order, okay? And honor. So this is how he expands and he gets into power, because the prevailing order at the time, it was corruption. You had these empires You had warlords fighting as mercenaries on behalf of these empires, and they were not affirming or upholding any kind of, Turkic or Islamic kind of law. So they were exploiting people, they were oppressing, they were doing whatever they fucking wanted, and it was a jungle, okay? So one of the biggest examples of unprovoked aggression people like to talk about is when Timur went and he sacked Delhi. So British historians made up this lie. Well, Timur saw Delhi was very wealthy, very prosperous. So Timur went to the Sultanate of Delhi just to kill them and steal their shit and then leave. And most people actually think that's what happened. Now, let me tell you the truth of what happened, okay? The northwest frontier of Delhi Sultanate, bordered Timur's empire. And this frontier was controlled by warlords. The warlords, all their wealth, prestige, and authority was granted and enabled by the Delhi Sultanate, okay? So they would act
Douglas Spada added 5 to the war chest. Long live the revolutionary dynasty.
Douglas, what's going on, bro? Appreciate it. That's what we love to see. Remember, we have super chats, both in YouTube. If you want to give me more of a share of it, we have it in the description as well. It's up to you, honestly. All of it is appreciated. But in any case, so the Delhi Sultanate was empowering and enabling all of these warlords to act in a dishonorable way. So you're a steppe chief, and you want to go do trade with one of these warlords, or you want to, cross a river, or you want to, you want to cross a bridge or whatever, right? You come into contact with them and interact with them. They come to you and they start bullying you. They start bullying you because they say, "Hey, I'm empowered, I'm powerful, I'm getting supported by Delhi. I can do whatever the fuck I want," right? So usually steppe nomads have nothing but what they're carrying off their backs, which means they have to honor agreements. They have to treat each other honorably and equally. That's what honor was, Otherwise, it's constant warfare, right? So there was an unfair disadvantage that the city of Delhi and the Sultanate was giving these warlords, which they were using to oppress and, brutalize and bully everybody. So Timur didn't like this. Timur was a guy who came off of nothing but what he had off his back. He had honor, he had a code. So Timur's people were interacting with these warlords who were acting like lawless bandits and criminals. And over time, Timur said, "Fuck this. Delhi is a source of corruption. This is corruption. This is an imbalance in the natural order of things." So that's why he went to Delhi and sacked it and plundered it. He humbled them. So I'm just using this example because even the most brutal conquerors of world history, Genghis Khan, Timur, Tamerlane, had an honorable reason to conquer and plunder in the ways that they did. When you hear Matt Walsh, who has the reasoning and psychology of a child predator, and Nick Fuentes say that, America first means subjugating and subordinating everyone because they're weak and we're strong. Even Genghis Khan and Timur didn't fuck with that. They didn't fuck with that reasoning or logic at all. Like people that you thought were barbarians and complete savages, even they had a better code of honor than that, right? So what this is Zionism. Because why do you think the Nietzschean ideology was invented? The neo-Nietzschean, neo-Kant ideology. Why was it invented? Because the Zionist Jews went to Palestine and they just stole the land from the Palestinians and massacred them. And they needed a moral justification for doing it. And they couldn't find one. So what did they do? They invented this LARP ideology, which says this is just the law of nature, we're just naturally stronger, yada, yada, yada. And that's the Likud ideology, that's the Zionist ideology, and that's the type of ideology that America itself is adopting, okay? America is a Zionist-occupied empire at this point. Zionism is our ruling ideology. Nick Fuentes is a Zionist. Matt Walsh, all these people. You know, this is absolutely at odds with what our country's supposed to be about. What is supposed to unify our country? What common principles, right? Well, look, here's the truth, and this is where you got to pay attention. It's one thing to point all these things out. It's another thing to ask the question, well, what can we do about it? What can we honestly do about it? Okay? I'll tell you what you can do about it. If you're sick of what's going on in this country and you'd like to see an alternative and you'd like to do something about it and get involved in some kind of way, join the American Communist Party. Genuinely, join our party. Join our party, and this way, you can be part of a community that has a correct understanding of what's going on in this country and what it's going to take to improve it, to fix the situation, to change the situation. acp.us/join. Join our community, join our party, join our movement, and be a part of the real American Republic. Be a part of the real America. The real America, which wants to remain faithful and true to our revolutionary heritage and legacy, which wants to remain true to our core values as a nation and as a people and as a country. And communism, absolutely. You've been taught all your life communism's bad. You've been taught all your life communism is anti-American. It's against the American way. Communism's the only way we free ourselves from these bloodsuckers and parasites. I've talked to libertarians. I respect a lot of libertarians, the Ron Paul types. But they're the utopians. They're trying to say that we can go back to the 1800s where everybody has a small farm plot and everybody's independent. And that's how we're going to break the monopolies and break the monopolistic control of Wall Street. No, we need to entrust. We need to entrust our productive forces for the common good. We need a common principle. I'm not saying that's going to be perfect. Nothing's perfect. There's good and bad in everything. But we at least need a principle to regulate our economic system or to control our economic system. We at least need the principle because we can't do that right now. We can't say we have no way to protest this under our current economic system. Can corruption exist under communism? Sure. Corruption can exist everywhere. But only with communist values can you root out corruption.
Added 5 to the war chest is the maintaining of the US's financial monopoly by collapsing the Venezuelan economy, the same as when the US used the IMF and the dollar to collapse the Lebanese economy in 2019, Korean economy in the 90s via the IMF.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate the 5, brother. Thank you so much. So yeah, this is what's going on, okay? We can't reverse the centralization of the productive forces. We need to entrust that under a principle of the common good that we can hold our government to the standard of. We need a standard to hold our government to. Communism is the best standard. Does communism mean perfection and there's no problems and there's no corruption? Absolutely not. But at least we now have a fucking standard. At least now corruption's not legal. You know, even in China, corruption exists. But they have a standard. So when they find out about the corruption, they can persecute it and prosecute it. So that's why we're communists. We're communists because there's no way we're going to go back to the 1800s where everybody has a small farm and is independent from each other. This is an era where the productive forces are interrelated and interlinked. Supply chains are interlinked. There's a division of labor we all depend upon. Okay? We need to be communists, and we need to entrust this. We need the control of this to be entrusted under a common principle that reflects our Republican values as a nation. Because right now, the Republican values upon which our nation rests...
Osos Tequila added 5 to the war chest. ACP Rising Sun with Race has join and stand with the working class.
Right now, the Republican values upon which our country is supposed to be founded.
PJ,
what's up, bro?
War chest libertarians refuse to look at economic incumbency as a political force.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right now, the Republican values upon which our country is supposed to rest. You know, I got to figure out what's going on with this camera and battery. Whatever. Well, guys, you know, every dollar you donate, I can maybe get a new camera if I need to replace it. So appreciate it, guys. But, you know, the Republican values upon which our country is supposed to rest. Those cannot be upheld if not for communism. If not with communism. Because right now they're being undermined. Our country's being turned into a feudal-like oligarchy. Okay? Where are our Republican values? Republic means the common thing, right? The public thing. Those values are gone. The economy is increasingly controlled by a handful of people who do whatever the fuck they want. Palantir, even Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, BlackRock, even Soros, all these other people. Who are they accountable to? These people act like gods in this country. They're accountable to nobody. And the last thing you need to be doing is listening to some pissant like Nick Fuentes and Matt Walsh, who are prostitutes of these people. They're prostitutes of the financial class. They're bought and paid for. They're not here to take power and give it back to the people. They're here to maintain the oligarchic control of our economy. And only if you're a communist can you challenge them and stand up to them in an effective way. Because a communist rejects the premise entirely that they have a right to loot and steal not only Venezuela's economy, but even our economy. So, I want to show you what the American Communist Party's been up to. Kind of like how I did last time, but just more recently. You know, so you could... So you could have an idea. So you could see acp.us right here. So go to acp.us/join. Okay. Show you what we're up. So in British Columbia, we have chapters in Canada because we believe America and Canada are one nation. We think that Canada has become, you know, it was created to be a loyalist stronghold for British colonialism. We're trying to build an American republic by, for, and of the people without any colonialism, right? So, there's condemnations. They attended protests here, you know, here and there. Pennsylvania attended protests. So we called upon our country to attend protests across the nation. And that's what they've been doing recently. So California attended the demonstration. Let's look at what they had to say.
We know what this is about. We know this is a resource grab. We know that this is the classic American regime change effort in a country that dares to defy American imperialism and oppression. So I have to be out here. It's like, you have to understand, an attack on them is an attack on us, right? And we have to stand up and we have to be the voice within the empire, within the belly of the beast, you know, and say enough is enough. We have to stand up and be out here in the rain. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's wet. Yeah, it's cold. But you know what's a lot worse is waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning to see bombs going off in your neighborhood. And so we have to be out here. It's our duty.
The Venezuelan people are trying to craft an sovereign economic destiny. They nationalized their oil and they were trying to use those profits for the Venezuelan people. There was a lot of poverty reduction in Venezuela. The literacy rates increased. There was an expansion of the healthcare in the Venezuelan, not just cities, but the countryside, which was underserved. So there were a lot of pro-social programs that the Venezuelan government was able to do because they were using their profits and their resources for their people. They weren't just selling out to the imperialist IMF and global regime.
Solidaridad al pueblo venezolano y a toda Venezuela, desde aquí, en el imperio, con el Partido Comunista Americano. Solidaridad para siempre y venceremos.
So, you know, ACP Washington was out. ACP Maine went out to, protest, and we got to make our voices heard somehow, guys. And the best way to do it is if we organize. The more we organize, the more people who join. Yes, that's you who needs to join. The more our voice is going to have weight and it's going to matter in this country.
Downtown.
We have a thriving Florida chapter. They were also out protesting
ACP Florida was in downtown Miami, where Americans are standing up against a U.S. regime that increasingly rules through lawless brute force. We reject war, intervention, and the violation of Venezuela's right to self-determination. And as we organize in the streets, we must also show up in city halls, demanding the release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. We call on all Americans to exercise their constitutional rights, demand peace, and stand in solidarity with the people of Venezuela. This is where the American Communist Party stands. Join us in this fight. ACP Florida.
Let's check on Illinois. That's what we're all about. So there were others who also, I'll show them as well. I don't know if they were necessarily. Actually, I don't know. I got to log in. We had chapters across the country protesting, New York, Colorado. They haven't uploaded the footage yet. Colorado, this was just recently. So let's check out Colorado.
Decirle al pueblo de Estados Unidos, no a la guerra. No queremos una guerra en el Caribe ni en Sudamérica. No. Not war. Yes, peace. No a la guerra loca. No crazy girl. No.
The Maduro song.
¿Cómo se dice en inglés? Please, please, please. Yes, peace. Yes, peace. Peace for the better. Peace for the better. Peace for the better. Esto se llama lenguaje.
So look, you may think this is a Democrat or Republican thing. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is an American people versus regime issue. The regime can be Trump, it can be Biden, it can be whatever. It's the same shit, whatever skin it wears, whatever clothing it wears. Democrat or Republican. At the end of the day, these are two wings of the same fucking bird. And it's the American people versus that bastard bird. That's what this is about. This isn't about red versus blue. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat. They're trying to make it into that. That's not what this is about. Because this would be happening under Biden. Trump, he's lying. He's a liar. They're all liars. So this is only the beginning, okay? We need to make our voices heard. You need to contact your elected representatives. We need to absolutely wage every kind of information war against the new attempt to manufacture consent for war in Venezuela, including the right-wing, Nietzschean Warhammer LARP, including the Nick Fuentes nonsense. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna have to look into it. This is fucking ridiculous. Hold on. Let me just see what's going on with my camera. All right. I'll have to do that after stream. Look into it. But yeah, I mean, look, guys, this country's getting crazy. I told you this last stream. This is just a perfect example of it. I'm not just here to give you rhetoric. I'm not just here to talk about it. There's something we can do about it if you're an American. You can join the American Communist Party, acp.us/join. And this is how we're going to... We need a different principle. We need a new principle for what it means to be an American, for what it means to be a sovereign people, to have popular sovereignty. The current system isn't working. And frankly, you know, they're creating this new nonsense. Fake chest beating and chest thumping. It's all fake. Everyone wants to own the libs by, you know, this whole... it's so psychological. It's MK Ultra, right? They're trying to make it seem like the libs are soy and you're a big tough guy. I mean, even Andrew Tate has gotten on board with the nonsense. You know, the preeminent... and, you know, look, to be frank, you know, Andrew Tate got his ass kicked in the boxing match recently. So, you know, I don't know. This is the tough guy who's talking about go and take the shit in Venezuela. It's a bunch of fucking nonsense, okay? You're not a tough guy by cheering on banksters, you know, suppressing and oppressing other people. That doesn't make you a tough guy. It makes you a little bitch, actually. Oh, we're going to do it. What are you going to do about it? It's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I'm fucking doing now, you know? Which is raise awareness and spread the truth. Because the real people, the real power of this country is the people, to be clear. And you're a cuckold if you're supporting the aggression against Venezuela. You know, this doesn't benefit us in any kind of way. And it couldn't benefit us. Two reasons, right? One, it materially doesn't benefit us. But a nation and a republic founded on the principles that every man is born with God-given dignity and natural rights could not be benefited, could not receive any benefit, even if they did receive more wealth from it, which they don't, from treating other nations in this way, from violating a nation's right to self-determination in this way. It doesn't benefit us because it erodes the principles upon which our common existence stand. And this is just a fact. The only thing that unites you with your neighbor in this country is you're supposed to have common principles. Treating other nations in this way violates and severs those bonds that are supposed to unite this country. So in principle, you should be opposed to it. Not just because you're not going to see any gain from it materially. For both reasons. It's just a fact that there's no material. The material and the you know, the morals shouldn't be separated. We don't benefit morally from the things that also don't materially benefit from us. The two exist at once. And it makes perfect sense. Nick Fuentes is he is bought and sold. You know, this guy pretended like he was some kind of dissident. He's some kind of anti-Zionist. He's controlled opposition. His whole reaction to the Kirk thing is absolutely proof of that. And, you know, there's no reason you shouldn't be looking into the American Communist Party right now. I'll tell you the common attacks we get as a party. First attack, the ACP hates white people. Okay, I looked at our census data because we did a census in the summer. 75% of our party is white. Not that it matters, but 75% of the party is white. And our census included all different ethnicities, Middle Eastern, Hispanic. 75% of the party is white. How can we hate white people if 75% of the party is white? It doesn't make a lick of sense. And then they shifted, and then leftists say that we're white supremacists. Well, how can we be white supremacists if 25% of our party, a full quarter, are non-white? So both of what the right-wingers and the liberal leftists say, it's nonsense. And then another thing that they'll try to say is that, they'll try to, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. And I don't know what that means. That's what liberal leftists will say, but we don't spend time giving any of that thought whatsoever because it's irrelevant to us. We don't wave any flags. You'll never catch us waving a flag that's not a political red flag, a party flag, sometimes the national flag. I personally think the Betsy Ross is probably more appropriate than the one we have now. But you'll never catch us waving their flags. Because no, we're not gonna submit to this, movement, which has nothing to do with our cause. So for that reason, they try to say that we're bigots and that we're fascists because we preserve our sovereignty and our independence. Okay, well, you could say whatever you want. It doesn't make a lick of sense. Okay, we're a communist party. We're the American Communist Party. We don't have to sign up for every Democrat NGO and Democrat. We're not Democrats. Okay. Democrat pet project. Religious people say that we're a bunch of godless communists. Right-wingers say this. Well, our party, just like it's 75% white, I haven't consulted the religious data. I'm almost certain we're overwhelmingly Christian. Most of our party is full of believing Christians, okay? So this is also a bunch of fucking nonsense. So pretty much everything you hear about the American Communist Party from our enemies, it's just made up and it's lies. They don't have anything rooted or grounded in truth whatsoever. Not even a little bit of truth. Not even a little bit of truth. The truth is we are independent. We're an independent force in U.S. politics. And we're growing. And let me actually report something. Remember the last stream that I did? 20 people signed up from our party that day. 20 people signed up for the American Communist Party just from my last stream on YouTube. So, and every day we are growing rapidly now. This year we are catching a huge windfall in growth. So now is the time to be part of this. If you join now, you're going to be early. But there could not be a better time to join than now. Because now it's the windfall. Now we are growing and gaining momentum. And there's never a better time to join our rapidly growing party. People try to mock us and say that we're a small party. Well, just wait. Just wait. They're going to go from laughing at us and saying we're a small party, and by the way, they're already kind of doing this, to saying that we're a national security threat and we need to be jailed, which is what Nick Fuentes his rainbow community is already doing. I don't even want to call them that. What they're full of a bunch of child predators and sick, disgusting degenerates. And these are his only friends, I guess. And these people, Nick Fuentes instructs them in private to constantly lie about our party. And the reason they do this is because they're scared of us. Because if you are a normal person in this country and you're against what our regime is doing, who are you going to join? The cat boys? or the real men and the real women? Who are you going to join? These degenerates? Or real men and women? Real normal men and women who want a better future for our country? Some people tell me, they say, well, look, Haas, I like Fuentes. He's funny. I like what he says. I say, you can find him funny, but if you join his movement, they're going to put some cat ears on you, and they're going to make you sign up for a lot of other things you didn't want to. These are some weird child predators. Keep the children away, okay? You know, you don't know what you're signing up for here. And a lot of people are surprised by his pivots and his twists and his turns. I'm not surprised by them because I know this freak and his real ideology and his real worldview. Okay, this is a sick, twisted, demented movement that they have. Absolutely, this is antichrist. They call themselves Christian. They want to go and bomb Christians and slaughter Christians. They're degenerates. They're filth. They're freaks. They're scum of society. They need to be locked up. They're a danger to children. And they're openly child predators. And they brag about it and they joke about it. We have all the evidence for it. You know, some people say, well, you communists don't want Americans to have freedom. No, we want to uphold the right of Americans to have freedom. But child predators like the Nick Fuentes Groyper movement need to be locked up and persecuted with an iron fist. Absolutely, they do. These are degenerates. These are people that are that mean harm to society, that mean harm to ordinary, normal people. Your families, your children, the people that you know. These people are absolutely sick and depraved. They need to be locked up for sure. These are the absolute criminal, lumpen, degenerate scum of our society. And they've noted, they have taken note of the American Communist Party as the number one threat to their grift and their scam of trying to deceive otherwise honest, normal Americans into thinking that the choice is between the existing status quo and them. And the truth is, they're part of the status quo. The people who are providing an alternative to the status quo, that's the American Communist Party. We're the ones you should be counting on. You know? So this is the truth. This is just the honest truth. And you need to keep, I see it on TikTok all the time. You absolutely need to be vigilant. You know, if you want another message to take away from this, I caution you. You need to stay vigilant, okay? Because I look at this, you know, they're like turning it into a video game. It's war, it's cool, it's Warhammer, it's and they feel like they're self-aware and that somehow makes them less cucked. We're gonna go and steal their oil and resources and kidnap their president. It's like this makes, you know who this makes feel tough? A people already cucked and humiliated and brutalized. You know, it's not a, look, you know, bullies in school, and most of these people are bullied in school. It's the truth. Most of these people are bullied in school. But, you know, bullies usually are getting brutalized at home. So they go and they bring that energy to the school. You know, there's always a chain of brutality. And it's a Diddy human centipede. Nick Fuentes and Matt Walsh want to submit Americans into a Diddy human centipede. And I hate to use this imagery and give you this imagery in your head, but that's what, and it's endless. There's no man in the equation. They want to humiliate and take the manhood of every man, Diddy style, because Diddy is didifying other men. Meanwhile, he's getting didified, and the person didifying him is getting didified, and it's all a big circle. And that's the Groypers, that's the Nick Fuentes, Matt Walsh, you know, neo-conservative movement. That was the Nazi Party. That's what the SA was doing, okay? Now, if you're a communist, A communist hates seeing other men have their dignity taken from them. A communist hates seeing other men oppressed. A communist wishes for all men to be free and dignified, just like themselves. We need to rein in and brutally destroy and dominate those who would see us oppressed. Absolutely, but even if you send people to a gulag, the purpose is to humble people. The purpose is to teach them hard work. The purpose isn't sadism. The purpose is not torture. The purpose is not enjoying seeing the God-given grace and potential of another human being taken and stolen from them. Okay? So, America's at a crossroads right now. Okay? Political Diddyism or communism. There's no third position. You're with these freaky Diddy people like Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, by the way, it's not just Diddy. He's an Epstein guy. That guy, he has child predator written all over his face. You know what Matt Walsh looks like? Matt Walsh looks like a creepy uncle. Whoever his siblings are, I hope they keep their kids away from him, because Matt Walsh looks like a creepy uncle. He's got major, major creepy uncle vibes, because he writes tweets and he goes, America needs to subordinate and subjugate all of the countries in our hemisphere. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Where does this come? Where does this fake tough guy energy come from? Subordinate and subjugate. First of all, we need to realize our inner potential within, okay? We don't need to be worrying about subjugating and subordinating others. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our country and our people, and we need to improve our country and uplift our people. This is what we stand for as American communists. But Matt Walsh, he goes, we need to subordinate and subjugate and whatever. And it's like, who gets off on these weird fantasies? This is some Diddy-like fantasy. I frankly find it weird. Why? How could it even cross your mind that you want to go do that? What are you proving? You're a tough guy? What are you proving something? What are you proving here? Like, what's being proven? Why not prove how strong and tough you are by fucking improve? You want to know? You want to know what I would find really tough and cool and strong? If Americans could prove they could do it, eliminate homelessness, build high-speed rail, build real industry and infrastructure, achieve monumental feats in science, industry, art, uplift the people that fucking live here, build our country up, build our people up, invest in our people, have our education level be higher than anything we before thought possible. Unleash the inner potential of our own people. Why don't we prove to ourselves we can fucking do that? What are we proving by wanting to attack and subordinate and attack other countries? We're not proving a fucking thing. What we're proving, and I said this before, I'm saying it again. Matt Walsh, when he says these things, he's putting a bat signal into the sky for a South American Diddy to chase him, hunt him down, and find him. Because he's giving off that energy, he's going to get he's putting a bat signal into the air, basically saying, I'm Matt Walsh, I want the Peruvian Diddy to hunt me down. And, he's basically putting that energy into the cosmos. Because he's like, this guy talking in prison, he would get attacked, okay? talking big like how he's trying to talk. It's complete. You know, anybody who knows anything about conquest and war and conflict and things, you see people talk this way. Oh, we need to go subordinate and Nick Fuentes. It's like they're children or something. Or they're, I don't know, the opposite. They're a bunch of diddlers. Because who thinks this way? What you lack a principle of unity for your own country if you think this way. I'm so strong, I'm going to go... You're setting yourself up for failure, for a Diddy human centipede. Just a cycle of constantly whatever, you know? The real law of the jungle is an eye for an eye, you know? You go and occupy a country and devastate and attack them. You're putting out a bat signal into the world that the same thing should happen to you. I guess, is it strange the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated? Does that make no sense to people? Treat others how you want to be treated. Oh, well, we're God. Will never happen to us. Really? No, there's something called morale. It's not just morality, it's morale. It's a thing that gives an army, an organized group of people, the confidence and belief that what they are doing is right. That not only do they have the ability to achieve their goals, that they are in the right. That they have a cosmic sanction for doing what they're doing, right? So, you know, it's just total nonsense. This whole tough guy posturing by Matt Walsh of all fucking people. And then you have Andrew Tate, who puts on an appearance of a tough guy, but then he lost in his boxing match. So, you know, what can you say? The guy got knocked. I think he got knocked out, right? I don't know. So this whole fake tough guy stuff, it's total nonsense, you know? I mean, the Soviet Union brutally conquered and dominated Germany in self-defense. So you have to have the capacity to do it, to defend your people, for sure, if you're attacked. But that's not something you should look forward to having to do. You know, people who really are real fighters, they don't look forward to it. Can I tell you guys, trained MMA fighters do not go looking for street fights. Because even if you win the street fight, it's an ugly bit. You could be spending your time doing something so much better. You know, why would you want to even incur that upon yourself? Even if you win, why would you want to waste your time, you know, risking, only if you have to, you do that, right? But people play Warhammer, they play video games, they play strategy games, and they think they know what war is, and they know what conquest is. Okay, I'm calling these people out. You're a little bitch. You're not a fucking warrior. You're not a conqueror. Conquerors have the mandate of heaven. America doesn't have the mandate of heaven, hell, or earth. America has the mandate of Ellen DeGeneres, okay? America has the fucking mandate of, you know, of fucking, I don't know, of Diddy. America has the mandate of Jeffrey Epstein. America has the fucking mandate of, you know, of Jeb Bush. What does America have the fucking mandate of? Nothing. It has the mandate of child diddlers and Diddy people. I mean, that's not a mandate of heaven. That shouldn't inspire confidence and resolve for us to have this passion to want to conquer the world when we don't even have a mandate. We don't have the mandate of anything, okay? Think of, like, we can't even fucking feed our people anymore. We can't even house our people anymore. We can't build anything. We can't do anything. America's a fucking pathetic laughingstock of the world right now. Yeah, we have a military that is funded by all the profits in the world that get vacuum cleaned into the U.S. through the dollar system of dollar hegemony. Congratulations. We have an extremely wealthy, powerful military. That doesn't make you strong when you are in debt and you can't even afford a roof over your head and you can't afford groceries. It doesn't really mean much. The capacity to destroy is not impressive. The capacity to inflict force is not impressive. Force is the most common and abundant thing in the universe. What's not common and what's scarce is being able to create and build things. You know, let's take the oil, let's take it. And buddy, you can't even take, I don't want to use this vulgar language, but Diddy has you. You can't even take yourself back from him. What are you talking about, boy? Shut the fuck up. What is this posturing? Matt Walsh, big tough guy, chest thumping. Nick Fuentes, the limp-wristed little bitch, chest thumping. You're not that guy, buddy. Literally sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Let's take the oil, let's steal it. Buddy, you don't know the first thing about what conquest is, what war is, what conflict is. It's a video game for these people. That's all it is. It's a video game. And there's no consequences yet. But when shit pops off in this country, when there's a breakdown of law and order, when there's a division in the unified command and control over the armed forces, which is inevitable, which is kind of already happening in the conflicts between the Democratic governors and the federal government, people should keep that same energy, buddy, because the law of the jungle, there's nowhere in the world that's going to be more acute than here at home. Warlordism and brutality, that's the Darwinism's going to be here at home, okay? Keep that same energy. There's not going to be an omniscient, omnipotent military to protect you when that happens. These people, they take for granted everything. They take for granted this notion that we have this godlike, omnipotent military that can do anything it wants. And they worship it like a god, and that whole military depends upon a united division of labor, a united chain of command, and most importantly, a united morale. Okay, all those things are breaking down. Okay, so it depends upon a global system intact. Okay, it's not working anymore. It's dysfunctional. So we're using, the U.S. has been the most powerful empire probably since the post-war period, but very powerful empire, very powerful military. And what are we proving by using that military we already fucking have to brutalize Venezuela? I mean, look, it looks impressive. It seems impressive that we went and kidnapped Maduro. But when you know how much the U.S. has built up its military, how much the CIA has been strengthened and bolstered for nearly a century, it's not impressive. Of course the U.S. can do that. I mean, are you kidding? The CIA has the technology. We have enough money to train up people in our military to perform things like that. It's not that impressive, actually, But people still cheer on, like, wow, we're so powerful. We're so mighty. We're so great. It's like all of the world's profits go to building this machine up. It would be remarkable if it wasn't able to do that. Okay? And nobody denied that. Albert, what's up? It's not a reflection of the resolve and brilliance and superiority of America as a nation. It's an expression of unlimited money. That's all it is. It's just a reflection of, if you have unlimited money, you could pretty much do anything. Yeah, that's true. What system does that depend on, and how sustainable is that? That's the question an intelligent person would like to be asking, right? So, let's think about these things a little bit with 5 minutes of effort. America isn't powerful because of how superior we are. America is powerful because the current global system recycles and directs all of the surpluses of production in a centralized manner. And America is the center. And this gives us unlimited money. As long as the system can keep going. We're 40 trillion in debt, but the system keeps on chugging. Okay, for how much longer can it do that? Well, all signs point to the answer to that is anything but indefinite. Without the dollar hegemony, the whole thing collapses. That's how fragile it is. It's already collapsing, though. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying it's already happening. So the grandstanding, it's all very unimpressive. I mean, let me ask a question. Are Americans as impressed by what happened in Waco and Ruby Ridge when the federal government went and killed all those civilians in Waco? Was that impressive? Because it's pretty much the same thing when you think about it, except Waco, the David Koresh was actually a bad guy, I guess, and Maduro wasn't. But the same way we went in Waco, I mean, that's what we're doing in Venezuela. We're just going in and brutalizing some rednecks trying to build some independence from our system. Okay, well, you cheer that on, you're a fucking cuck. Okay, that's all you are. Waco, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Waco. It's like living vicariously through a power that cucks you, but you feel like you have pride and patriotism for yeah, America, fuck yeah. It's like, buddy, what have you what is the accomplishment here? Like, the accomplishment is unlimited money because of a fraudulent global economic system that's not going to last another decade. Congratulations. If that's the type of patriotism you have, you're just a cuck. You may as well spit on this country and its flag, because that's a nothing. You should be proud of what your country's people can do, not what the globalist system enables your regime to do. I feel like it's that simple. Like, we have a globalist system that enables our regime to print as much money as it wants, or, enables the financial cartels to print as much money as they want and do whatever they want. Okay, what about that makes you feel patriotic? It's quite pathetic, actually. So, I think I've given you guys a pretty good rundown. What's the roots of this ideology? Well, the men of this country are brutalized and emasculated, and the regime is giving them this false sense of tough guy, I guess, feeling by, brutalizing and kidnapping the president of Venezuela. And it's making all these cuckolded soy men feel like they're men. Throwing them a bone, I guess. It's distracting them from the fact that they're being diddified by the banks. It's like, buddy, anyone who's cheering on what's going on in Venezuela, hey, buddy, Diddy's right behind you. Did you know that? But Diddy's literally right behind you while you're cheering. I guess they're letting out this cheer, but that's just like a release of pressure from the pressure Diddy is giving them. The Diddy banks are giving them these pressure, and they're just releasing it by animalistically, in a swine-like manner, cheering on for the aggression against other countries. It's quite pathetic. Because nobody would, unless you yourself are being brutalized, nobody would admire aggression against other nations, unless you yourself are being brutalized. In which case, you probably are, seeing that as a cathartic thing, a cathartic release of pressure, right? It's a cathartic release of pressure for your own brutalization. You pathetic, cuckolded bitch. If you want to win your dignity and you want to win your freedom, don't identify with the Roman pederast, senatorial aristocracy. Identify with Spartacus. We are Spartacus. You understand? American Communist Party, we are Spartacus. You're a bunch of slaves. It's time to fucking stand up. Stand up. Join the army. Join the Spartacus army. The American Communist Party. We are Spartacus. We're not the Roman senatorial pederast, Diddy aristocracy. I'm sorry, these guys with the whole Roman LARP, with the centurions and the whole Roman LARP, you're basically on some Diddy shit, all right? We are Spartacus. Spartacus, Spartacus is out here fighting for dignity and freedom the old-fashioned way. You pull together your strength, you pull together your resources, and you stand up. Stand up for our God-given dignity and our God-given rights. That's the American Communist Party, the party of Spartacus. And these legions and centurions, they're cucks. They're being diddified. It needs to end. This has got to stop. Nick Fuentes, nobody knows. Maybe something happened to him or he was always this way. But this is a very... in what terms can I put this? Okay, I think Nick Fuentes was on Epstein Island. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. But this is not the message... Matt Walsh and all these people, Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles and stuff. They're at these Diddy parties, man, or something, some equivalent. The Republicans are twisted. The Republicans, you should look up what they're doing in Bohemian Grove, okay? This is a psychopathology. If you're a man with a semblance or a shred of dignity and honor, you should see the writing on the wall. You don't want anything to do with this. Join the American Communist Party. You don't want anything to do with this nonsense. Okay? Anyway, guys, if you like the stream and you want to see more YouTube streams, support the stream. Okay, I'm not being bankrolled or hired by anyone. Not being sponsored. So, if you can't spare any support, like and comment, that would be much appreciated. I'll reserve a specific period of time just now, just to listen. If you have any questions, if you'd like to make any contributions to the stream, now's the time to super chat. Now the time is to send in a TTS donation. I'll be reacting to the super chats, and then we're gonna close off afterwards. So I'll give it a minute or so. If not, But now's the time. I'm gonna reserve this segment of the stream to answering questions, responding to comments, things of that nature. Yo, Nid, what's going on, bro? Appreciate you, brother, with the 20 gifted memberships. Thanks for the 20, bro. Appreciate it. I've got to get these notifications fixed. Let me actually add the alert box. Just add that right there. Anonymous with the 10. What's going on, brother? Appreciate you. We got super chats. Good, perfect. All right, it should be working right now. Members. Got it. Perfect. All right. We got a guy named Cosmic. He's going, Trump in charge of Venezuela. There's no reason for Venezuelans to make sorry excuses to stay in the USA. Go home, Venezuela. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, Trump is not in charge of Venezuela. They just stole, because they're too cowardly to go to war with Venezuela, because it would mean massive U.S. casualties, because they can't sustain an occupation. They performed this CIA, shitbird, pussy, smoke and mirrors CGI thing, which probably maybe involved the complicity of some dissenting traitors within the regime, to basically pull off this heist and kidnap the president. That's not a conquest, okay? That's not a conquest at all. No money for you, commie? Well, that's okay, because I'm not motivated by money, actually. I'm motivated by the message. I'm just, giving people the option if they want to continue to see YouTube streams. But that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. YouTube won't accept payment. Yeah, a lot of people are seeming to have problems with the super chats. I don't know. They seem to not be working. Ones of you attempted a super chat and it's not working, because I hear a lot of people saying super chats aren't working. Maybe we'll fix it. Ones, yeah. Albert, what's up, bro? Appreciate you. Yo, Albert, what's up? Okay, there. I remember that old notification is back. I don't even have the option. Okay, I need to look into that. Let me, hold on, give me a second. I need to look into this. I think I might even not have them enabled. Okay, let's see. That's interesting. I don't know. Straight up doesn't appear for me, but I haven't updated my YouTube in months. Let me actually try to see this myself. You don't have them enabled. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Only member gifting is an option. Why the fuck is that? Hold on. Had to go through the link in the description. Right. It should be there. Super chats are governed by different eligibility rules. You don't meet the super chat specific eligibility, even though memberships are allowed. Super chats require monetization and no current restrictions related to payments, chat behavior, or live stream policy compliance. Temporary restriction is okay. Wow. It's like a cooldown. Okay, hold on. Account or payments backend issues. I don't know what the hell this is. You know what it could be, guys? Hold on. I'm gonna see.
Orvo added 5
Orvo,
to the war
what's up,
chest
bro?
free
Appreciate
Maduro.
you. Appreciate you. Yep, it's okay, hold on. I need to go and check. Go to right here. Earn supers and gifts. Ah, they're not turned on. Guys, it wasn't turned on. It's now turned on. Refresh and see if it's turned on now. Is it on? Ah.
Oh my God.
Comrade, what's up? Hold on. Oh my God, guys. Hold on. My AdSense isn't even verified.
Oh my God.
What the fuck? This whole time my AdSense was not verified. Jesus Christ. This is just awful. We're going to fix this live on stream together. So all these gifts, I haven't been getting anything. YouTube has been paying me nothing this entire time. Holy shit. Holy shit. All right, hold on. So super chats for sure do not work, correct? Okay, we're going to fix this right now, guys. This is what an outrage. I mean, this is like the most ridiculous thing. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Okay, hold on. Okay. You know, this is, you know why this happened? Because when my account got hacked, they reset everything. And what happened is that I forgot to re-enable it. So guys, that's the reason this nonsense has happened. Give me one moment, guys. Just 1 sec. Give me 1 second.
Carti added 10 to the war chest scammer get scammed.
Base. Hey!
Long live the party. Astonished face.
Amila! What's up? Oh, it's working. Amila, appreciate you. But I have to fix my AdSense to get any of these payouts, because yikes, I don't want like YouTube to steal all this from me. Yeah!
The American Communist Party is the only true political resistance that can take on the party of Epstein.
NID, what's up, bro? Appreciate you.
Based.
Index pointing up emoji, 1 IGG, index pointing up emoji,
Osos.
1 Guerrilla Army, index pointing up emoji, 1
What's up,
movement,
bro?
index pointing up emoji, W Austin W stream.
What's up, Osos? Okay, we're back, guys, with our YouTube. Yeah, Albert, what's up?
Based.
America is the Jake Paul of empires, only stands a chance against hopeless cases that can't fight back and acts like it's the shit.
Jennifer, what's up?
Finally. Jeez Louise.
Hold on, guys. This is not good. Yeah, I'm verified. What's the... How come it's saying that, moderators got reset too? This is so weird. Yo, what's going on, bro?
Based.
I recommend everyone to read Lenin's The War in China. One of the greatest communists of history commenting on a situation similar to ours. Love this stream, Moss.
Appreciate you, bro. So I earned, like, money in December and in January. But, they did not send it to me. Because they put a pause on my AdSense. So guys, is this money gonna...
Saluting face
Versage,
emoji.
what's up? Am I even gonna get this, guys? What's going on? Probably. Am I getting scammed? Like, what's going on here? Whoa. Wait! Something is not adding up! No, something ain't adding up. Huh? Oh. My last stream was in December. This is my first stream of the new year? How could time fly like this? Time has flown. But then how come I didn't get a payout for what I earned in the last stream? This doesn't make any sense. Huh? We've closed part of your account. This is no aspect. Why did you close my account? What do they mean you've closed my AdSense account? Connect your site to AdSense. They say it has no connection to YouTube. Hold on. AdSense for YouTube. Your earnings. View payments. Oh, hold on. Let's just check YouTube. Hey! Your last payment was issued on December 21st. You've reached 0% of your payment threshold. What are you talking about? Huh? No, wait. I still get ad revenue from some of my videos though. I usually get $100 a month from YouTube just from ad revenue. So that's why I'm saying like they stopped. Oh, they did give me. Okay, they did. How much you've earned? But did they pay out? Am I getting paid out? I'm not getting paid out though. Since November, I haven't been getting paid out. Hold on. To start earning from AdSense, you need to add payment info and connect your site. What site? What site? I don't have a site. What do you mean? You have to have a fucking website to earn from YouTube now? I need help. This is fucking horrible. Okay, AdSense for YouTube. Oh my god. Literally shoot me. Okay, so it's saying I have a YouTube AdSense account. The problem is, on my Google AdSense, it's not saying that. I fucking hate YouTube and Google. Okay. Oh, hold on. Got this. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, this can be fixed. Your balance is updated once a month in AdSense for YouTube. Okay, I got it. All right, guys, we should be fine. Hey, guys, I've been streaming too long. Look. All right, guys, appreciate the supers, appreciate everything. It's all good. I'll get everything. I got it all set up. It's all good. We can start going as normal, you know. We have 2 super chat options. One is in the description, and one is in the YouTube super chat. We got that fixed. We got that cleared up. Everything's good. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. Everything's beautiful. acp.us/join. Okay. One's if you're new. One's if you're a new viewer to the community. Join the Discord right now. Join our community. But you might get bullied. I don't know. Join. One's if you're new. Everyone here's an OG, right? All right. You know, now, honest to God, guys, now I know for a fact Kick is not botted. Because we just have the same people who watch us across. It's usually about like 500, right? So that's been confirmed. All right. Anyway, y'all, I'll see you. Bye-bye. This was a long stream. I need to stop wasting time in streams. Like, I just did a whole 40-minute segment trying to fix my shit, right? All right, y'all. Bye-bye. See you guys, hopefully, maybe tomorrow, maybe the night. We'll see. Bye-bye.
Dark_NRG
what's up, bro?
For the war chest. Long live the Bolivarian Revolution.
Long live the Bolivarian Revolution. That's exactly right. What's up, bro? All right, y'all. Wow! Camera's all fucked up. That's my concluding